and welcome to a humble Highland home. Thank you so much for joining me here today. When I first started designing this kitchen garden, my vision was to have smooth systems in place to work alongside me and to help me reach the bigger goals that I'd set for the garden and also for myself. Sometimes big goals can be quite daunting, but by breaking them down and putting systems that work for you can help alleviate the pressures of achieving the bigger goals. I could just see this little corner of the garden being the hive of activity, with a greenhouse holding the place where the seeds are started and then nurtured for a week in the house. Some seeds can be helped to germinate by this short spell of time in the house. Then they come back into the greenhouse until they're ready to be pricked out. Of course, not all seeds are planted like this. Some are planted in module trays, or in flat trays, or in soil blocks, and some seeds are planted directly into the ground. This can take a little bit of planning, but it's very worth the investment in time. This is the shelving unit that I recently purchased to replace the one that went into the polytunnel. It's got an extra shelf, so a little bit more space. It's the only freestanding unit that could fit this area. It's supposed to go outside with a cover over it, but I've adapted it to meet my needs and greenhouse space. And of course, the cardboard box that it came in will also be put to good use. I prefer seedlings not to have to sit around for any longer than necessary. So from the greenhouse, they'll either be hardened off outside, ready for planting, or they'll head into the polytunnel onto the staging until they're ready to be planted out, or when I'm ready for them as a crop comes out, the next crop should be going in. Well, that's the plan anyway. In last year's main growing season, I didn't have as many garden beds ready as I'd hoped, so I had to rely upon temporary growing spaces. And although they did produce, they weren't as effective or productive as they could have been. So I'm hoping that by smoothing out this system, this year I can relax a little more and have faith that I have got the ground or the containers ready to avoid the plants being left in modules or pots too long and they begin to suffer. They can run out of nutrients and become leggy, which will end up with an unhealthy, misshaped plant. These are the onion and sweet pea seeds that I planted recently. They spent a week in the house and then came out to the greenhouse. They're still covered over at night time because it's still pretty chilly, but they get the benefit of all the daylight during the day. The greenhouse, of course, will quickly fill up. Our estimated last frost date is the middle of May, so depending on the seeds, I will be planting the majority of my seeds 6 to 10 weeks before this date. So I have the date in the diary so that I know what to plant and when to plant it. You can find out your estimated frost date online. I usually use the Farmer's Almanac. You just pop in your postcode or your region and it will give you your hardiness zone. This set of shelves I've been using as a wee microclimate over winter time because it has been really cold here. So I've got a few things stored in there wrapped up in bubble wrap to hopefully support them over the winter time. So as it warms up, Then I will empty this shelving unit, ready for seedlings coming out of the greenhouse, ready to get planted on. Our picnic bench was moved into the composting area in autumn time, as where it was just where the apple tree was going to be planted. I am looking forward to moving it back out into the garden so that I can regain this space and we can sit amongst the plants once again. But first I need to clear that bit of space where the picnic table is going to go. The composting system has continued to work well. Although it doesn't get warm enough in winter time to break down, I continue to add the layers for when it does warm up again. If I was to make any changes to the composting area, it would be to build some wooden bays to store carbon materials in instead of what I'm currently using. This would make it so much easier to add to the compost as and when I need it. But changing the composting area is not in this year's planning anyway, so I will have to work with what I have just now and fine-tune it in the future. As I increase the size of our growing spaces in the garden, I've decided that I need a more productive way of planning my seed starts to match the new growing spaces that are in the process of becoming available to me. But that's the beauty of a good system. It can be adapted to when things change. So thank you so much for joining me here today. Take care of yourself and others, and I'll see you in the next video.